Ever wondered how baseball became America's pastime? Let's travel back to 1903, the year that changed everything. Welcome to our channel. Today, we will begin our series on the history of baseball and how it became America's national pastime. This series will cover the major events in baseball history from 1903 to 1923. That includes the very first World Series, the rise of early stars like Cy Young, and the all-important peace agreement between the National League and the American League. Stick around to find out how baseball captured the heart of America. Before 1903, the National League and the American League clashed on many occasions. This includes player raids, contract disputes, and more. However, two competing leagues signed the National Agreement in 1903. This agreement resolved those conflicts by formalizing cooperation between the two leagues. This led to improved stability and unity within professional baseball, which is why it is often called the Peace Agreement. The first World Series took place in 1903 and featured the Boston Americans playing against the Pittsburgh Pirates in a best-of-9 series. Cy Young was Boston's star pitcher at the time, and Honus Wagner was Pittsburgh's star shortstop. The 1903 World Series brought mainstream attention to Major League Baseball and solidified the newly created unity of the MLB. In the 1903 MLB season, Cy Young had a 2.08 ERA, a 75% winning percentage, and 176 strikeouts. In the 1903 World Series, Cy Young posted a 2-1 record and had 17 strikeouts in 34 innings. This helped the Boston Americans win the very first World Series 5-3. Cy Young's sustained excellence later led Major League Baseball to name the Best Pitcher award in each league after him in 1956. Honus Wagner is another baseball legend who played in the 1903 World Series. Wagner was a legendary shortstop who played for the Pittsburgh Pirates in the 1903 MLB season. In that season, his batting average was .355 and he hit 19 triples. In the 1903 World Series, Wagner batted in 3 runs and had a .582 slugging percentage. Pittsburgh lost the 1903 World Series. However, Wagner later won the 1909 World Series with Pittsburgh with 2 strikeouts at age 35. The fan reception to the 1903 MLB season was largely positive, with most MLB teams seeing an increase in their home game attendance. The success of the first World Series in 1903 cemented its status as a major sporting event. Additionally, stars such as Cy Young changed professional baseball forever, and his legacy remains well known by MLB fans, even more than a century after his retirement. The increased popularity that started in 1903 laid the foundation for Major League Baseball to become the popular sport that it is today. The Peace Agreement in 1903 brought the stability that professional baseball needed to begin its of America's national pastime. In summary, 1903's World Series, the emergence of star players like Cy Young and Honus Wagner, and the peace agreement that ended the conflicts between the National and American leagues. It is a crucial year in the history of professional baseball. Ever wondered why baseball is called America's pastime? Step back to 1904 and discover the events that shaped the sport forever. Welcome to our deep dive into baseball history. As stated in our first episode, 1903 saw the National Agreement signed between the National League and the American League. This agreement, also known as the Peace Agreement, stabilized professional baseball in the United States. Since the two leagues were now part of one organization, Major League Baseball, they weren't competing for fans anymore. This stability helped lead to most MLB teams enjoying increased attendances at their home games this season. The New York Highlanders, later renamed the Yankees, had a 107% increase in home game attendance in the 1904 MLB season. However, the New York Giants, later the San Francisco Giants, were the best team in the MLB in 1904, finishing with a 106-47 record. 1904 was the year of the New York Giants. Led by the charismatic John McGraw, they steamrolled their way to the National League pennant. The New York Giants won 13 more games than the National League runners-up that season, the Chicago Cubs. The Giants' 106 wins was a Major League Baseball record at the time. John McGraw was the Giants' star third baseman and served as a player manager for a total of 30 years from 1902 to 32. Despite the Giants' excellence in the regular season, one major incident meant there would be no 1904 MLB postseason: the refusal of the Giants and Americans to play each other in the World Series. One of the most shocking events of 1904 was the absence of the World Series. Despite the Giants' dominance, John McGraw refused to play against the American League champions, sparking outrage and controversy. The reasons for McGraw's refusal to allow the Giants to play the Americans in the World Series are relatively straightforward. McGraw saw the American League, which had only been founded in 1901, as essentially a minor league and disliked Ban Johnson, the American League's outspoken president. Additionally, McGraw also strongly disliked the New York Highlanders, since they were a new rival located in the same city as the New York Giants. McGraw refused to let the Giants play whichever team won the AL pennant. This refusal led to changes regarding the World Series rules and format to try to ensure no MLB season would end without a completed World Series ever again. 1904 also saw the rise of future legends. Joe Tinker and Mordecai Brown both made their MLB debuts with the Chicago Cubs in the 1904 MLB season. Brown later became one of the era's most dominant pitchers, despite only having 3 fingers on his right hand. Meanwhile, Tinker went on to have a Hall of Fame career as a center fielder. The Chicago Cubs had an infield trio of Frank Chance, Johnny Evers, and Joe Tinker that started to establish a reputation as a fantastic double-play combination. Addie Joss also debuted in 1904 with the Cleveland Naps, later renamed the Guardians, and earned a reputation as an exceptional pitcher. It was clear that 1904 saw the rise of young players who would become prominent in the next era of baseball. Baseball in 1904 wasn't just about the players, it was also about how the game captivated the nation. Innovations in ballpark designs brought the sport to a wider audience. Concrete and steel construction started to become the norm for ballpark designs. Ballparks also improved and increased seating for the growing number of fans attending games. Additionally, ballparks started to experiment with unique field sizes based on the available land and the surrounding cityscape. This made each ballpark stand out. Teams also started to provide better fan amenities such as covered seating areas and better bathrooms and concession stands. Teams added and improved scoreboards and press boxes to benefit the fans and the media covering the games. These innovations contributed to the aforementioned increase in the MLB's popularity and attendance numbers. 1904 was a pivotal year that helped shape baseball into the pastime we know and love today. The events of this year laid the groundwork for the sport's future growth and enduring legacy. Step back in time to 1905, a pivotal year in baseball history. This is the year that transformed the game and set the stage for America's enduring love affair with baseball. Ready to discover why? Let's dive in. In 1905, the New York Giants emerged as the team to beat in Major League Baseball. With a roster full of talent, they were unstoppable. The New York Giants won 105 games in the 1905 MLB season and only lost 48. Christy Mathewson's outstanding pitching and John McGraw's excellent management contributed significantly to this dominance. They won the National League by 9 games, with the Pittsburgh Pirates winning 96 games that season. The Giants had even greater motivation to win the 1905 World Series, considering the controversy surrounding the lack of a World Series in 1904. They would face the Philadelphia Athletics, the American League champions, in the 1905 World Series. The climax of the 1905 season was the World Series, where the Giants faced off against the Philadelphia Athletics. Unsurprisingly, the Giants were the favorites heading into the series, especially since Rube Waddell, arguably the Athletics' finest pitcher that season, was unavailable due to a shoulder injury. The Giants won Game 1 in Philadelphia 3-0 as Mathewson pitched a 4-hit shutout. A Mike Donlin single led to Roger Bresnahan scoring a run and Donlin making it to second base. Sam Mertes doubled, and this allowed Donlin to score to make it 2-0 Giants in the 5th inning. The Athletics' Ossie Schreckengost hit a double, then made it to third base as a result of a wild pitch, but importantly failed to score. The Giants got a third run in the ninth inning when Bresnahan hit a single, and Billy Gilbert scored thanks to that single. Mathewson's complete game shutout in Game 1 set the tone for the 1905 World Series. The Athletics won Game 2 3-0 to tie the series, largely thanks to Chief Art's excellent pitching, but the Giants responded by winning 3 straight games to clinch the series. Mathewson pitched complete game shutouts in Games 1, 4, and 5. He not only pitched a complete game shutout in Game 5, but he scored a late run in the 8th inning to ensure the Athletics had very little chance of a comeback. Mathewson's performance in Game 5 of the 1905 World Series is one of the greatest performances in World Series history. The 1905 World Series is the only World Series where every game was a complete game shutout. The Giants' victory in the 1905 World Series helped fans and media move past the controversy of no World Series happening in 1904. Additionally, it started a rivalry between the Giants and the Athletics. The two teams would play each other in 3 consecutive World Series from 1911 to 13. However, the Athletics won all 3 of those World Series, exacting their revenge on the Giants. 1905 was also a year of innovation in baseball. Strategic pitching became prominent in baseball, with Mathewson's fadeaway pitch being a prime example of this. This pitch is now known as the screwball. MLB baseballs also became more standardized. Baseball manufacturers did their best to produce baseballs with more uniform composition, weight, and size. There were also improvements in protective gear, too. Catchers started to use better shin guards, chest protectors, and masks. These improvements helped catchers stay safe and increase their importance as a defensive position in baseball. The National and American leagues, as well as the teams comprising those leagues, started to operate more professionally. This meant better game coordination, improved scheduling, and more structured league operations. The added professionalism brought further stability to Major League Baseball and made sure the sport was run in a more organized and profitable way. Additionally, the format of the World Series was changed. The first World Series was a best-of-9 series, but the 1905 World Series used a best-of-7 format. 1905 was a transformative year for baseball, continuing to lay the groundwork for the sport to become America's pastime. In summary, the Giants dominated the 1905 MLB season and won the 1905 World Series in 5 games against the Athletics. The 1905 MLB season helped baseball become a greater part of American culture, especially after the controversy of the 1904 MLB season. Hey, baseball fans! Today, we're diving into the incredible events of 1906 that helped shape professional baseball into the beloved game it is today. Let's get started. The 1906 World Series was a historic showdown between the Chicago White Sox and the Chicago Cubs. Known as the Hitless Wonders, the White Sox defied all odds to clinch the championship against their crosstown rivals, the Cubs. This epic battle remains one of the most memorable World Series in baseball history. The 1906 World Series was the 3rd World Series. In this matchup, the White Sox pulled off one of the most incredible upsets in World Series history. Many had mocked the White Sox for having the worst batting average in the American League in the 1906 season. The White Sox were called the Hitless Wonders as a result of this poor batting. By contrast, the Chicago Cubs had won the most games ever, 116, since the 154-game regular season had been established. Most bettors considered the Cubs 2-1 favorites to win the 1906 World Series. However, the White Sox shocked the Cubs and won the series in 6 games. The Sox's pitchers outperformed the Cubs' pitchers in the first 2 games of the series, which the Sox won. After that, the Sox's much-maligned batters outplayed the Cubs' batters in the series' final 2 games to clinch the World Series. The upset stunned the baseball world and remains a historic upset. 1906 also saw the rise of one of baseball's most unique and effective pitchers, three-finger Mordecai Brown. Despite a severe injury to his hand, Brown's incredible skill on the mound led the Cubs to a record-breaking 116 wins that season. His story is a testament to resilience and talent. Mordecai Brown's unusual grip meant that the ball spun more than normal. This extra spin meant Brown could throw a great curveball in addition to both a changeup and a fast ball that regularly fooled batters. The additional spin meant batters struggled to connect solidly with balls thrown by Brown on many occasions. The Cubs' stunning loss in the 1906 World Series prevented Brown from becoming a World Series champion during that season, but he had already established himself as one of the best pitchers in the National League. This year was filled with iconic moments and record-breaking performances. From the highest winning percentage by the Cubs to the memorable feats of individual players, 1906 was a year for the history books. The aforementioned Sox upset of the Cubs in the 1906 World Series was both stunning and memorable. Mordecai Brown also achieved a stellar 1.04 ERA that season, one of the best in baseball history. Brown's dominance on the mound was a key factor in the Cubs' record-setting season. Additionally, Ed Walsh, the Chicago White Sox pitcher, rose to fame as he pitched incredibly well in the 1906 World Series. Walsh struck out 12 batters in Game 3 alone. He also struck out batters in every inning of Game 3, a feat that only Bob Gibson has replicated in Game 1 of the 1968 World Series. 1906 was a monumental year in the history of baseball, marking significant milestones that have left a lasting legacy. From legendary players to unforgettable games, this year truly helped solidify baseball as America's pastime. The year is 1907. Teddy Roosevelt is president, the first electric washing machine just hit the market, and on baseball diamonds across America, history is being made. But how did 1907 become one of the most defining years in the history of professional baseball? Stick around to find out. Welcome back to our series, How Baseball Became America's Pastime. In today's episode, we dive into the unforgettable events of 1907, a year that witnessed both triumph and controversy in America's favorite sport. First up, let's talk about the Chicago Cubs. 1907 was the year they solidified their dominance in baseball. Led by the fierce trio of Tinker, Evers, and Chance, the Cubs charged their way to a National League pennant. The Cubs dominated the National League, winning 107 games in the 1907 MLB season. They finished with 16 more wins than the National League runners-up that season, the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Cubs were especially difficult to beat at home, going 54-19 on their home field. It wasn't just about winning games. The Cubs made history by sweeping the Detroit Tigers in the World Series, clinching their first-ever championship. The city of Chicago was full of excitement and pride over the Cubs' World Series win. The White Sox had won the World Series in 1906 against the Cubs, but 1907 was the Cubs' year. While the Cubs were celebrating, one player was making headlines for both his skills and his antics: Ty Cobb. The Georgia Peach was as talented as he was controversial, as some great athletes were and are. Cobb's aggressive play style and off-the-field behavior made him a polarizing figure, but there's no denying his impact on the game. In 1907, Cobb led the American League in batting average, solidifying his reputation as one of the best hitters in baseball. He finished the season with a .350 batting average. 1907 wasn't just about the players. It was also a year of evolution for the game itself. Rule changes and innovations began shaping modern baseball as we know it. One significant change was the crackdown on spitballs, pitches doctored with saliva or other substances. These changes were meant to make the game fairer, but they also added a layer of strategy that kept fans on the edge of their seats. However, the spitball was not completely outlawed until more than a decade later, despite many players and managers in Major League Baseball criticizing it. Beyond the field, baseball was becoming a cultural phenomenon in 1907. The sport was more than just a game. It was a symbol of American life. From small towns to big cities, baseball united people of all backgrounds. The ballpark was where everyone gathered to cheer, boo, and share in the excitement of the game. Major League Baseball also saw 6 teams improve their total home attendance. The Detroit Tigers increased their total home attendance by an incredible 70% in the 1907 MLB season. This was likely due to the Detroit Tigers being the best team in the American League, winning 92 games that season. The Tigers were founded in 1894, but had a major breakthrough year in 1907 when they won their first American League pennant. 1907 was a year of firsts, triumphs, and transformations in baseball. It set the stage for the game we know and love today. Imagine a time when the entire nation held its breath, captivated by the drama unfolding on the baseball diamond. Welcome to 1908, the year that solidified baseball as America's pastime. But what made this year so unforgettable? Let's dive in. The year 1908 wasn't just any year in baseball. It was a year of unprecedented drama, record-breaking performances, and a pennant race for the ages. From tense rivalries to legendary plays, this year had it all. The National League pennant race was one of the most thrilling in history. The New York Giants, Chicago Cubs, and Pittsburgh Pirates were locked in a fierce battle, each team striving to clinch the pennant. The Cubs were the defending World Series champions in 1908, but they could not pull away from the New York Giants and the Pittsburgh Pirates in the National League pennant race that season. It was unclear which one of the three teams would claim the 1908 National League pennant and earn the opportunity to play in the 1908 World Series. As such competitive struggles in sports sometimes do, this pennant race shifted constantly from game to game. It enthralled the nation as baseball fans across America wondered which team would win the pennant. One game, one play would change everything. September 23rd, 1908, an infamous day in baseball history. In a game between the Giants and the Cubs, young Fred Merkle committed what would go down as a legendary mistake. With the game tied, Merkle failed to touch second base on what should have been a game-winning hit. The mistake cost the Giants the game and ultimately the pennant. This blunder would haunt Merkle for the rest of his career. As a result of this, the Cubs instead won the pennant and earned the chance to win consecutive World Series championships. The Chicago Cubs faced the Detroit Tigers in the World Series once again, with the Tigers looking to avenge their loss in the 1907 World Series. There was some controversy over a ticket scalping scheme that affected World Series attendance in Chicago. Fans accused the Cubs' owner of involvement with this scheme. As a result, some fans boycotted the 1908 World Series, leading to decreased attendance. Despite the controversy, the Chicago Cubs emerged victorious, winning the National League pennant and then going on to claim the World Series title against the Detroit Tigers in 5 games. This would be the Cubs' last World Series win for over a century, cementing 1908 as a legendary year in baseball history. The Cubs shut out the Tigers in the final 2 games in Detroit. The Cubs won Game 4 3-0, then won Game 5 2-0 to clinch the World Series title. Game 5 of the 1908 World Series is still the shortest postseason game in Major League Baseball history. It only lasted 1 hour and 25 minutes. While the Giants and Cubs battled it out, Honus Wagner of the Pittsburgh Pirates was having a season for the ages. Wagner led the league in batting average, on-base percentage, and stolen bases, solidifying his place as one of the greatest players of all time. His excellence on the field was a testament to the growing talent in baseball. Wagner had a batting average of .354, an on-base percentage of .415, and he stole 53 bases during the season. He also drove in 218 runs. His all-around play made his 1908 season one of the most dominant seasons in baseball history. Some, like baseball writer Bill James, consider Honus Wagner's 1908 season the greatest single season a player has ever had in baseball history. The drama, talent, and unforgettable moments of 1908 resonated across the nation, further embedding baseball into the fabric of American culture. This was the year baseball truly became more than a game. It became a national obsession. Drama of the exciting 3-way National League pennant race was key to baseball's increase in popularity in 1908. (1909), a year when legends were born, rivalries intensified, and the stage was set for some of the most unforgettable moments in baseball history. What made 1909 such a pivotal year in America's pastime? Let's dive into the excitement, drama, and unforgettable plays that defined this incredible season. But before we get started, hit that like button, and if you love baseball, don't forget to subscribe for more. The 1909 MLB season was a critical one for baseball. 8 teams experienced an increase in home game attendance, including the Philadelphia Athletics, who saw a 48.3% increase. Additionally, both the National and American Leagues had become more competitive. The Detroit Tigers won the American League pennant, but only finished with 3 more wins than the American League runner-up, the Philadelphia Athletics. Additionally, the Pittsburgh Pirates won 110 games and the National League pennant. However, the Chicago Cubs won 104 games and had only 6 fewer wins than the Pirates. Baseball's increased competitiveness helped continue its rise to prominence in the United States. By 1909, baseball had firmly rooted itself in the hearts of Americans. The sport was more than just a game, it was becoming a national obsession. Amidst all this, there was also a fierce rivalry forming that would later culminate in the 1909 World Series. Ty Cobb, the Detroit Tigers' star center fielder, had an intense rivalry with the Pittsburgh Pirates and their star shortstop Honus Wagner. Cobb and Wagner were opposites in terms of personality. Cobb was intense and at times confrontational, while Wagner was soft-spoken but excellent. Cobb and Wagner would face off on baseball's greatest stage as the Tigers and Pirates competed against each other in the 1909 World Series. The 1909 World Series brought 2 titans to the forefront: Ty Cobb, the fiery competitor from Detroit, and Honus Wagner, the quiet, relentless force of the Pittsburgh Pirates. This series would go down in history as one of the most fiercely contested ever. Several of the previous World Series had been fairly one-sided, but the Pirates and Tigers were quite evenly matched. Babe Adams, the Pirates' rookie pitcher, unexpectedly started Game 1 and helped the Pirates win 4-1 thanks to his excellent pitching. However, the Tigers responded with a 7-2 comeback win in Game 2 after allowing 2 runs in the first inning. Ty Cobb stole home plate to kickstart the Tigers' comeback. Cobb largely played poorly in the 1909 World Series, but Game 2 was his shining moment. Honus Wagner excelled in Game 3 with 3 stolen bases, 3 RBI, and 3 hits as the Pirates won 8-6. George Mullin, the Tigers' ace, shut out the Pirates in Game 4 as the Tigers won 5-0 and tied the series once again. Babe Adams stepped up for the Pirates in Game 5, only allowing 6 hits in an 8-4 Pirates win. However, George Mullin refused to let the Tigers lose Game 6 and bounced back from allowing 3 runs in the first inning to only allowing 1 more run in the entire game. The Tigers won 5-4 to force a Game 7. The 1909 World Series was the first World Series to go 7 games. In Game 7, the Pirates took a 2-0 lead in the second inning as Tigers pitcher Bill Donovan struggled mightily. The Tigers pulled Donovan in the third inning, but the damage was already done. The Pirates were relentless and went on to win Game 7 8-0 for their first ever World Series championship. The 1909 season wasn't just another chapter in baseball's history. It was a defining moment that solidified the sport's place in American culture. The legends of Wagner, Cobb, and that unforgettable World Series live on, inspiring generations to come. 1909 was a significant year in baseball history as its popularity grew, its leagues became more competitive, and there was a classic World Series. It was a major step forward in baseball becoming America's pastime. What if I told you 1910 was the year that forever changed the face of baseball? From intense rivalries to record-breaking moments, 1910 was a game changer in America's favorite pastime. Stick around as we dive into this pivotal year in baseball history in the latest episode of our series. The year is 1910. Baseball is more than just a game. It's becoming a national obsession. With the National League and American League battling for supremacy, the competition is fierce, and the stakes have never been higher. The Philadelphia Athletics, who missed out on the 1909 American League pennants to the Detroit Tigers, were the dominant team in the American League in the 1910 MLB season. The Athletics won 102 games. They were the only team in the American League that season to win more than 90 games. Meanwhile, the Chicago Cubs won the National League pennant with a 104-50 record. After the classic 1909 World Series, fans eagerly anticipated the 1910 World Series between the Athletics and the Cubs. Additionally, the total attendance numbers demonstrate the growing popularity of baseball in 1910. Both the Athletics and the Cubs drew more than 500,000 fans in total across their home games in the 1910 season. In the American League, the 1910 pennant race was one for the ages. The Philadelphia Athletics, led by the legendary manager Connie Mack, were locked in a fierce battle with the New York Highlanders. However, the Athletics later clinched the pennant and booked their ticket to the 1910 World Series. Chief Bender, Eddie Collins, and Jack Coombs were three of the Athletics' star players. Coombs was the star pitcher, Collins was the star second baseman and best hitter, and Bender was another exceptional pitcher with 155 strikeouts. Only Coombs struck out more players for the Athletics than Bender in the 1910 season. The Athletics and Highlanders had a fierce rivalry, playing each other 21 times that season. The Athletics went 12-9 against the Highlanders. These 12 wins played a major part in helping the Athletics clinch the 1910 AL pennant. The 1910 World Series saw the Philadelphia Athletics face off against the Chicago Cubs in what would become a historic matchup. The Cubs were no strangers to the World Series, but the Athletics were hungry for their first championship. The Athletics won Game 1 4-1 thanks to excellent pitching by Chief Bender and solid hitting by several Athletics players, including Frank Baker. This set the tone for the series. Jack Coombs won 3 games, and Athletics bats were relentless as they scored 9 runs in Game 2, 12 in Game 3, and 7 in the series-clinching Game 5 win. The Cubs managed to win Game 4 by a score of 4-3 in 10 innings to avoid a sweep, but this was simply a consolation victory. The Athletics won their first World Series championship. But 1910 wasn't just about team rivalries. It was also the year of baseball's first MVP race, the Chalmers Award. Ty Cobb and Napoleon Lajoie were the frontrunners, and what happened next was nothing short of controversial. Cobb and Lajoie battled to finish with the highest batting average that season. It went down to the final day, but Lajoie prevailed. The St. Louis Browns used questionable tactics against Lajoie on the final day of the season, making a rookie third baseman play on the field's outfield grass. This made it easy for Lajoie to get hits even with bunts. Ultimately, the controversy meant that Cobb and Lajoie jointly won the Chalmers Award. The events of 1910 were more than just headlines. They were milestones that helped solidify baseball as America's pastime. From the excitement of the World Series to the birth of the MVP race, 1910 was a defining year in the sport's history. (1911), a year of monumental moments, fierce rivalries, and record-breaking feats that shaped baseball into the game we love today. But what exactly made 1911 so unforgettable? Let's step back in time to discover the pivotal events that made this year a cornerstone in baseball history. The Philadelphia Athletics were a force to be reckoned with in 1911. Fresh off their 1910 World Series win, the A's were looking to cement their legacy. Led by the legendary Connie Mack, they were ready to dominate the league once again. In 1911, the Athletics won the American League pennant with a 101-50 record. As in the 1910 season, the Athletics' key players were Chief Bender, Eddie Collins, and Frank Home Run Baker. The Athletics sought to repeat as World Series champions and establish a championship dynasty. However, to do so, they would have to face the National League pennant winners, the New York Giants. The New York Giants had won the National League pennant with a 99-54 record. They finished with 7 more wins than the National League runner-up that season, the Chicago Cubs. Many fans eagerly anticipated the 1911 World Series between the Giants and the Athletics. It would be an exciting clash between two great teams. The 1911 season also saw individual greatness from Ty Cobb, who established himself as one of the greatest hitters ever. While the Athletics were making headlines in Philadelphia, Ty Cobb was rewriting the record books. 1911 wasn't just another year for Cobb. It was the year he solidified himself as one of the greatest hitters of all time. Cobb had an incredible 4.20 batting average in the 1911 season, in addition to 248 hits, 147 runs scored, and a slugging percentage of .621. Cobb had a heated rivalry with shoeless Joe Jackson in 1911, narrowly beating him in batting average that season. Ty Cobb was an intelligent player, paying attention to the opposing team's tendencies and using them to his advantage. Cobb scored 5 runs in a single game against the New York Highlanders on May 12, 1911, using his wits to score the game-winning run when the Highlanders were arguing with the umpire. 1911 was also part of the dead ball era, which influenced how teams played the game. 1911 was deep in the heart of the dead ball era, where strategy and speed ruled over power. Home runs were rare, and teams relied on small ball tactics to win games. The large size of ballparks, pitcher-friendly rules, and letting pitchers alter the ball led to this low-scoring era of baseball. Teams instead relied on speed, defense, and plays such as stolen bases to win games. One such team was the New York Giants. The New York Giants used all of these tactics and enjoyed great success. As previously mentioned, they won the 1911 National League pennant and advanced to the 1911 World Series to face the Philadelphia Athletics. The circumstances of dead ball era would impact how the 1911 World Series turned out, as one might expect. The climax of the season came in October when the Philadelphia Athletics faced the New York Giants in a World Series that would go down in history as one of the most exciting and competitive. Game 1 was a low-scoring affair, tied at 1 run each heading into the 7th inning. However, the Giants scored a second run in the 7th inning and won the game. Christy Mathewson set the record for most consecutive shutout innings in the World Series with 28, thanks to his perfect play in the top of the first inning of Game 1. Game 2 was again competitive, with Frank Baker hitting a 2-run home run off a pitch from Rube Marquardt to give the Athletics a 3-1 lead. They held on and tied the World Series at 1 game apiece. Game 3 saw the Giants leading into the 9th inning when Frank Baker hit a home run to tie the game and send it to extra innings. The Athletics won Game 3 3-1 in 11 innings and took a 2-1 World Series lead. Chief Bender recovered from giving up 2 runs in the first inning of Game 4 and shut out the Giants in the rest of the game as the Athletics won 4-2. Game 5 would be dramatic again. Down 3-1 in the bottom of the 9th inning, the Giants scored 2 runs to tie the game at 3 runs and send it to extra innings. Larry Doyle scored the game-winning run in the 10th inning and saved the Giants from elimination. However, the Athletics dominated Game 6, as Chief Bender only allowed 4 hits all game. The Athletics won Game 6 13-2 and repeated as World Series champions. 1911 was more than just a year in baseball. It was a turning point, a year that solidified the game's place in American culture. From record-breaking performances to historic moments, the events of 1911 laid the foundation for baseball's future. "1912, what a year for baseball. The year Fenway Park opened its gates, a pitching sensation took the mound, and one of the most epic World Series battles in history unfolded. You won't believe the drama and the legends that were born this year. April 20th, 1912, Fenway Park opens in Boston. Little did fans know they were stepping into what would become one of the most beloved ballparks in history. With its iconic green monster and intimate atmosphere, Fenway has witnessed countless legendary moments, but it all started in 1912. Fenway Park has become one of the most iconic ballparks in baseball. Its opening was a significant event in the history of baseball, as the Red Sox would continue to call it home to this day. On the field, 1912 also saw the rise of a legendary pitcher, Smokey Joe Wood. Smokey Joe Wood had played for the Red Sox since 1908, but the 1912 season was his breakout season. Few expected Wood to become a star pitcher at the time, but he defied expectations and had a historic season. Every baseball fan loves a good underdog story, and 1912 gave us one of the best. Smokey Joe Wood of the Boston Red Sox dominated the season with 34 wins, an astounding ERA of 1.91, and a whopping 258 strikeouts. Wood's incredible pitching was key in leading the Red Sox to a season for the ages. Since 1900, pitchers have only won 30 games or more 21 times. Smokey Joe Wood's 34 victories is the sixth most in MLB history. Wood also won 16 games in a row, tying Walter Johnson's record. Wood's excellence helped the Red Sox win the American League pennant and advance to the 1912 World Series, where they would face the New York Giants, the National League pennant winners. The 1912 World Series would go down as one of the best ever. The 1912 World Series is one for the history books. It pitted the Red Sox against the New York Giants in what became an epic 8-game battle. Yes, you heard that right. 8 games. Game 2 of the 1912 World Series ended in a 6-6 tie after 11 innings due to the onset of darkness. This forced the series to go to 8 games, despite the 7-game format of the World Series. The Red Sox won Game 1 4-3 after Smokey Joe Wood struck out the final 2 batters and finished with 11 strikeouts. After the controversial Game 2 tie, the New York Giants won a close Game 3, 2-1 to tie the series. Josh DeVrew, the Giants outfielder, made the final catch with his bare hand. Smokey Joe Wood had a complete game and 8 strikeouts as the Red Sox won Game 4 3-1 and regained the series advantage. Wood also had an RBI single to cap off his excellent performance. The two teams traded wins until the series reached a decisive Game 8. Game 8 went to extra innings with the score tied 1-1. Larry Gardner hit a fly ball to DeVore that allowed Steve Yerkes to score the series-winning run. The Red Sox were World Series champions for the second time in their history. 1912 wasn't just a year. It was a turning point. From the opening of Fenway Park to the unforgettable World Series, the events of this year helped shape baseball into the beloved pastime it is today. The legends that emerged in 1912 still echo in ballparks across the country. It's 1913, the year baseball truly solidified its place in American culture. From record-breaking games to dramatic rivalries, this was a year of legends in the making. Stick around as we dive into the moments that made 1913 unforgettable in baseball history. 1913 was a year of intense competition, legendary feats, and the cementing of baseball as America's pastime. As the sport grew in popularity, so did the stories that would shape its legacy. Let's rewind the clock and relive some of the most iconic moments from this pivotal year. The Philadelphia Athletics, led by the legendary Connie Mack, were the undisputed kings of 1913. They finished the season with a staggering 96 wins, dominating the American League. Their star pitcher, Eddie Plank, had an incredible year, racking up 18 wins. But it wasn't just about Plank. The team's lineup was a powerhouse from top to bottom. This dominance was capped off with a resounding World Series 5-game victory over the New York Giants, securing their place in baseball history. The Athletics' success in 1913 was a masterclass in teamwork and strategy, making them the team to beat. Game 1 saw Frank Baker score 3 runs, while Chief Bender did enough to help the Athletics win 6-4. Despite the Giants scoring to make it 5-4 in the bottom of the 8th inning, the A's held on for the win. In Game 2, Christy Mathewson had a complete game shutout and scored a single as the New York Giants won 3-0. The Athletics dominated Game 3, winning 8-2 thanks to 5 runs in the first 2 innings and several more later in the game. Game 4 was dramatic as the New York Giants attempted to mount a late comeback after being down 6-0 going into the 7th inning. The Giants scored 3 runs in the 7th inning and 2 runs in the 8th inning, but the Athletics prevented them from scoring again and won 6-5. In the decisive Game 5, the Athletics scored 3 runs in the first 3 innings thanks to Frank Home Run Baker and Stuffy McInnis. Larry McLean drove in an RBI single to prevent the Giants from being shut out. However, this was a mere consolation, and the Athletics won their 3rd World Series championship in the past 4 years. 1913 also marked the peak of Walter Johnson's career, one of the greatest pitchers to ever play the game. Known as the Big Train, Johnson was a force to be reckoned with, posting an astounding 1.14 ERA, the best in baseball. He also led the league with 36 wins, an achievement that would cement his status as a legend. Johnson's dominance on the mound was unparalleled, and his performances in 1913 left batters quaking in their cleats. This was the year Walter Johnson became not just a player, but an icon. 1913 wasn't just about players and games. It was also the year a new baseball field opened its doors, Ebbets Field in Brooklyn. This iconic ballpark would become the heart and soul of the Brooklyn Dodgers and a cherished landmark in baseball history. Opening on April 5th, 1913, Ebbets Field was more than just a stadium. It was a symbol of the sport's growing popularity and its deep roots in American culture. Fans flocked to see their beloved Dodgers, and Ebbets Field quickly became synonymous with baseball passion. 1913 was a year that shaped baseball as we know it today. From the rise of legendary players to the opening of iconic stadiums, these moments made baseball America's favorite pastime. 1914, a year when the world was on the brink of war, but America was captivated by something else: baseball. From epic underdog victories to bitter rivalries, this was the year that shaped the future of America's pastime. Ready to dive into the drama? Let's go. In 1914, the baseball world was rocked by the emergence of the Federal League, a new rival to the established National and American leagues. But this wasn't just any upstart. The Federal League came out swinging, signing big-name players with promises of higher salaries and the freedom to negotiate their contracts. The Federal League altered the established order that had been created in baseball. The Federal League included 8 teams. The Chicago Federals and Kansas City Packers were 2 of these teams. The Federal League challenged the dominance of the National and American leagues, convinced several future Hall of Fame baseball players such as Mordecai Brown and Chief Bender to join, and led to greatly reduced attendances at National and American League games. Additionally, the Federal League's emergence led to large increases in player salaries. Since there was a viable alternative to the National and American leagues, players used that in contract negotiations in order to get higher salaries. As a result, the National and American leagues had to increase player salaries by more than double to retain them. Now, let's talk about the Boston Braves, a team that started the season in dead last, only to pull off one of the greatest comebacks in baseball history. By midseason, they were called the Miracle Braves for a reason. Midseason turnarounds happen in all sports, but the story of the 1914 Boston Braves was an unlikely reversal of fortunes by any standards. The Braves had a record of 26-40 by early July. However, 3 pitchers led the Braves in a historic turnaround: Lefty Tyler, Bill James, and Dick Rudolph. The Braves started winning and led the National League standings beginning on September 8th. They never let go of first place after this. In their final 87 games of the season, they went an incredible 68-19. The Braves won the National League pennant. The 1914 World Series pitted the Boston Braves against the Philadelphia Athletics. The Athletics were heavily favored. However, in Game 1, Braves pitcher Dick Rudolph played incredibly well, while Hank Gowdy, the Braves catcher, scored a single, double, and triple in addition to a walk-in run. The Braves won Game 1 7-1. Game 2 was a legendary battle between Braves pitcher Bill James and Athletics pitcher Eddie Plank. They both shut down the opposing batters until Braves third baseman Charlie Deal hit a fly ball in the 9th inning and got a double. Deal later stole third base and scored on Braves outfielder Leslie Mann's 2-out single. Bill James ended the game with a double play, and the Braves were up 2-0 in the World Series. Game 3 was a classic, as it went to extra innings with the score tied 4-4. Leslie Mann scored the game-winning run in the 12th inning when Athletics pitcher Joe Bush threw a wild pitch to third base following Herbie Moran's bunt. Only one win separated the Braves from World Series glory now. In Game 4, the desperate Athletics managed to tie the score 1-1 in the 5th inning. However, in the bottom of the 5th inning, Braves second baseman Johnny Evers scored a 2-run single. This put the Braves up 3-1. Thanks to excellent pitching by the Braves, they held on and completed one of the most improbable sweeps in World Series history. The Braves' World Series victory inspired baseball fans all over the country. 1914 was a year of surprises and challenges. It was a year that tested the mettle of baseball and set the stage for its growth as America's pastime. Imagine a time when baseball was the heartbeat of America. In 1915, baseball wasn't just entertainment, it was drama, it was passion. And this year changed everything. 1915 was a year of fierce rivalries and seismic shifts. The country was captivated as the Boston Red Sox emerged as the dominant force. Legends like Babe Ruth began their ascent. The Boston Red Sox dominated the 1915 season and claiming the American League pennant with a record of 101-50. Led by Tris Speaker, with his incredible defense and clutch hitting, the Red Sox were unstoppable. However, a young pitcher named Babe Ruth began making headlines. At just 20 years old, Ruth's powerful left arm and potent bat hinted at the legendary career that was to come. Fenway Park had opened a few years earlier in 1912. This new home for the Red Sox signaled the start of the team's rise to prominence. However, in the National League, a capable challenger emerged, the 1915 Philadelphia Phillies. The Philadelphia Phillies' 1915 season was eventful. They fired their previous manager, Red Duin, and replaced him with Pat Moran during the 1915 offseason. The Phillies' star duo of Grover Cleveland Alexander and Gabby Cravath led the Phillies to a 90-62 record in 1915. This was enough to win them their first National League pennant. However, they faced a legendary Boston Red Sox team to secure World Series glory. The 1915 World Series pitted the Red Sox against the Philadelphia Phillies in a best-of-7 showdown. The Phillies took Game 1 by a score of 3-1, largely thanks to Grover Cleveland Alexander's excellent pitching. This was a shock. However, the Red Sox bounced back and won Game 2, 2-1. Sox pitcher Rube Foster allowed 3 hits and struck out the final 10 Phillies players he faced. Foster also hit the RBI single that won the game in the top of the 9th inning. Game 3 featured an incredible battle between Sox pitcher Dutch Leonard and Phillies pitcher Grover Cleveland Alexander. The score remained tied 1-1 heading into the 9th inning. Sox batter Duffy Lewis won the game in dramatic fashion, hitting an RBI single in the bottom of the 9th inning. Ernie Shore replaced Leonard as the Red Sox's pitcher in Game 4. Shore prevented the Phillies from scoring until the 8th inning. The Sox held on for the 2-1 victory. In Game 5, the Red Sox were down 4-2 after the 4th inning after Fred Luderis hit the Phillies' only home run of the entire series. However, 2 runs by Sox right fielder Harry Hooper and 1 run from Sox left fielder Duffy Lewis helped the Sox win Game 5, 5-4. The Red Sox shut down the Phillies' bats, with the Phillies having a poor .182 batting average in the 1915 World Series. Additionally, the Red Sox pitched so well in the 1915 World Series that a young Babe Ruth made only 1 pinch-hitting appearance in the entire series. Another battle was being fought off the field. The Federal League was in its final season. Unable to compete financially with the National and American Leagues, the Federal League folded after the 1915 season. However, its impact was significant. It led to Wrigley Field's creation and resulted in a landmark antitrust lawsuit. That lawsuit was settled, but its consequences noticeably affected baseball moving forward. 1915 was a pivotal year in baseball history. It marked the rise of the Boston Red Sox dynasty, the emergence of Babe Ruth, and the end of the Federal League. These events set the stage for baseball to become America's pastime, a sport that would unify the nation and create legends whose names we still revere today. Imagine stepping into a world where baseball is king, legends are born, and the sport continues its rise as America's pastime. Welcome to 1916. 1916 was a tumultuous time in America. The country considered joining World War I, and life was rapidly changing. But through it all, baseball remained a constant. Baseball captivated the nation. The Cleveland Indians, now called the Guardians, experienced an astonishing 208.9% increase in home game attendance during this season. In 1916, the Boston Red Sox were the defending World Series champions. Their incredible 1916 team included Babe Ruth, 1916 saw Babe Ruth become a household name. It was the Boston Red Sox's year. The Red Sox narrowly finished ahead of an excellent Chicago White Sox team and won the American League pennant. Everyone expected that the White Sox would continue to challenge the Red Sox moving forward. The Red Sox were on fire, with a young Babe Ruth rising to stardom. Before he became a legendary slugger, Ruth dominated from the mound. In 1916, Ruth wasn't known for home runs. Instead, he was the ace, posting a remarkable 1.75 ERA and winning 23 games. His pitching arm contributed to another Red Sox World Series title, solidifying their early 20th century dominance. The 1916 World Series was historic because the Red Sox were on the verge of a record-setting fourth World Series title. It included the longest game in World Series history at the time. The Red Sox faced the Brooklyn Robins, but due to its larger seating capacity, Braves Field hosted the Red Sox's home games in the 1916 World Series. The Red Sox largely dominated Game 1, leading 6-1 prior to the ninth inning. Red Sox pitcher Ernie Shore was playing well. However, Shore fell apart in the ninth, allowing an error, a walk, a bases-loaded walk, and hitting one Robins batter. The Robins reduced the Sox's lead to 6-5. Carl Mays replaced Ernie Shore and kept the Robins at bay for the 6-5 win. Game 2 was even more dramatic. The Robins hit an inside-the-park home run in the top of the first inning and led 1-0 until the third inning. Babe Ruth scored a run via a ground ball to tie the game 1-1. Neither team could score, and the game went to the 14th inning. Red Sox first baseman Del Gaynor hit a pinch-hit single to win the game 2-1 for Boston. This game was the longest World Series game ever until Game 3 of the 2018 World Series, 102 years later. The Robins returned home to Ebbets Field in Brooklyn for Game 3. They led 4-0 prior to a 2-run sixth inning from the Red Sox. The Sox scored a third run in the seventh inning via third baseman Larry Gardner's home run. Jeff Pfeffer, the Robins relief pitcher, pitched for 2 2/3 innings. Pfeffer held the Red Sox hitless and secured the win. The Robins started off well in Game 4 with a 2-run first inning. However, the Red Sox responded with a 3-run second inning. Sox pitcher Dutch Leonard shut down the Robins' bats after the first inning. Meanwhile, the Sox overwhelmed the Robins' outfield with Larry Gardner hitting his second home run of the series. The Sox won 6-2 and needed only one more win. The Sox dominated Game 5 as Ernie Shore allowed 3 hits. Boston scored runs with ease, showing their excellence. Meanwhile, the Robins only managed 1 run in the entire game. The Boston Red Sox were World Series champions once again. They pitched dominantly for the second consecutive World Series, holding the Robins to a .200 batting average. Babe Ruth wasn't the only star. Carl Mays was equally dominant, winning 2 games in the World Series. His submarine pitching style baffled hitters and helped Boston secure their title. By 1916, baseball was a national obsession. From New York to St. Louis, the game was spreading like wildfire. Stadiums were packed, and the entire country was hooked on this all-American pastime. 1916 was more than just a year in baseball history. It was the foundation of legends and the cementing of dynasties. In 1917, America entered World War I, but baseball? It was booming. This was the year that shaped legends and stirred fans' hearts. Want to know what made this year so pivotal in the journey to baseball becoming America's favorite pastime? Well, grab your peanuts and Cracker Jacks because we're about to dive right in. First, let's take a quick look at America in 1917. The country was deep in the war effort, and baseball was a welcome distraction. The United States entered World War I on the Allied side in April 1917. Many in the U.S. preferred neutrality, but a variety of reasons brought the U.S. into the conflict. Despite the turmoil, fans were packing stadiums. Baseball offered an escape from the daily grind and gave people something to root for. The Boston Red Sox were the defending World Series champions. However, in 1917, the White Sox were even better than they had been a year earlier. The Chicago White Sox dominated in 1917, led by manager Pants Rowland. With stars like Eddie Collins and Shoeless Joe Jackson, they tore through the American League. Their powerhouse pitching staff, including Red Faber and Eddie Cicotte, silenced opponents all season long. The White Sox won the American League pennant with 10 more wins than the defending champions, the Boston Red Sox. This Red Sox team still contained the core of its back-to-back World Series winning dynasty. The Chicago White Sox winning the 1917 AL pennant shows their historical greatness. The White Sox stormed into the World Series. The New York Giants cruised to the 1917 National League pennant, winning it by 11 games. The Giants went 14-8 against the Phillies that season, so the head-to-head record between the two teams decided the NL pennant. The White Sox had star power, but the Giants had balance and depth. The Giants allowed the fewest runs, scored the most runs in 1917. Hernie Zimmerman, Walter Hulk, and pitchers such as Ferdy Shupp formed the team's core. They were outclassed in terms of sheer talent. Despite the talent gap, the 1917 World Series featured competitive games, stunning home runs, and controversy. White Sox pitcher Eddie Cicotte pitched a complete game in Game 1. Fred McMullen scored Chicago's first run of the game in the third inning before Happy Felsch doubled the lead with a fourth-inning homer. Slim Saleh drove in a run for the Giants in the fifth inning, but it was too little, too late. The Sox won Game 1. In Game 2, shoeless Joe Jackson hit a two-run single in the fourth inning. The game had been tied 2-2 at the fourth inning's start. However, the White Sox scored 5 runs in the fourth inning and cruised for the 7-2 win. Down 0-2 in the series, the Giants returned home for Game 3, desperate to win. It was a quiet game for both teams' bats. George Burns hit a single, Walter Hulke hit a double, and Dave Robertson's triple for the Giants led to 2 fourth-inning runs. The Giants won Game 3 2-0. Rejuvenated by their Game 3 victory, the Giants dominated Game 4 at home. Benny Koff, the Giants center fielder, hit 2 home runs. His first was an inside-the-park home run that flew over Happy Felch's head. Dave Danforth relieved Red Faber on the mound for Chicago, but Koff hit his second home run off one of Danforth's pitches in the 8th inning. The Giants won 5-0 and tied the World Series. Reb Russell was the Sox's starting pitcher in Game 5, but Red Faber replaced Russell after the Giants' first 3 batters all reached base. Eddie Cicotte had a terrible third inning. His 3 errors led to a 4-1 Giants lead. However, the Sox rallied in the 7th inning and scored 3 runs to tie the game. Happy Felsch hit an RBI single off Giants relief pitcher Paul Parrott as Chicago took 8-5 lead in the 8th inning. The Giants couldn't respond and lost. In Game 6, the Giants made 2 costly errors in the 4th inning that led to 2 White Sox runs as Ray Schalk and Chick Gandil capitalized on these mistakes with RBI hits. Buck Herzog hit a triple in the 5th to give the Giants hope as they cut the White Sox's lead to 3-2. However, Red Faber shut down the Giants' bats for the rest of Game 6. The White Sox scored an insurance run in the 9th inning. The series-winning run was controversial as Eddie Collins outran Giants third baseman Heine Zimmerman while no one covered home plate. Most thought Collins was simply too fast for Zimmerman, but photos show that Zimmerman was only a few steps behind Collins during the controversial rundown. The MLB later banned Zimmerman for life due to a variety of corruption accusations. Chicago emerged victorious, clinching their second World Series title. Shoeless Joe Jackson is one of the most iconic players in baseball history. Jackson hit an incredible 301 during the season and was instrumental in the White Sox's success. His fielding skills were just as legendary, and many believe that 1917 was Jackson at his peak. It wasn't just Chicago grabbing headlines. In 1917, the Boston Red Sox's young pitcher, Babe Ruth, made waves. Ruth threw his first career no-hitter that season against the Washington Senators, foreshadowing his future greatness. The baseball world would soon come to know him as the Sultan of SWAT. But in 1917, he was still just a pitcher with a mean fastball. 1917 was a year of triumphs, legendary players, and unforgettable moments. It's no wonder that this year stands as one of the key building blocks of baseball's transformation into America's favorite pastime. It was a year that sparked excitement, captured hearts, and made baseball an enduring symbol of hope and unity. 1918, a year when the world was in chaos, and baseball was no exception. With the Great War raging across Europe and America deeply involved, The professional baseball season was on thin ice. Yet this was the year of one of the most dramatic and transformative moments in baseball history. How did a sport played with a ball and bat manage to survive and even thrive in such turbulent times? Welcome to episode 16 of How Baseball Became America's Pastime. The United States was fully committed to the war effort, and baseball wasn't immune. Many of the game's biggest stars, including Ty Cobb and Christy Mathewson, traded their uniforms for military fatigues. Players were drafted into the armed forces, and it was a time when baseball's future seemed uncertain. With calls for work or fight, the season was cut short. But baseball adapted, and America's love for the game persisted. The 1918 season was unlike any other. Due to the war, the season was cut short, ending on Labor Day, the earliest finish in Major League history. But despite this, the stage was set for an unforgettable World Series. The Boston Red Sox versus the Chicago Cubs. Comiskey Park hosted Chicago's home games in the 1918 World Series. Meanwhile, the Red Sox's home games in the series were held at Fenway Park once again. This further solidified Fenway Park's status as the official home of the Red Sox. Babe Ruth dominated in Game 1, pitching a shutout as the Red Sox won 1 in a row. Red Sox first baseman Stuffy McInnis scored the only run of the game. McInnis drove in Red Sox second baseman Dave Shane via a fourth-inning single. McInnis hit off of Cubs starting pitcher Hippo Vaughn. However, Game 2 ended any thoughts that the Red Sox would steamroll their way through the Cubs. The Cubs won Game 2, 3-1, as Cubs pitcher Lefty Tyler only allowed 6 hits all game. Additionally, Tyler scored a 2-run single in the game's second inning to increase the Cubs' lead to 3-0. Tyler nearly pitched a shutout, but the Red Sox scored a consolation run in the 9th inning. The 1918 World Series stayed in Chicago for Game 3 because of wartime travel restrictions. Red Sox pitcher Carl Mays allowed only 7 hits. Meanwhile, Red Sox shortstop Everett Scott and Red Sox catcher Wally Shang hit RBI singles consecutively in the 4th inning. The Cubs scored a run in the 5th inning but failed to complete the comeback. The Cubs and Red Sox were allowed to travel on September 8th, so the World Series shifted to Fenway Park for Game 4. The Red Sox led 2-0 heading into the 8th inning. However, Cubs shortstop Charlie Hollicher and Cubs outfielder Les Mann ended Babe Ruth's streak of pitching scoreless World Series innings in the 8th inning. The Cubs tied the game 2-2. It came down to the 9th inning. Cubs relief pitcher Phil Douglas's wild throw and Cubs catcher Bill Killefer's pass ball led to Wally Shang scoring the game-winning run for the Red Sox. Facing elimination in a hostile stadium, the Cubs bounced back in Game 5. Hippo Vaughn earned his first win of the 1918 World Series as he pitched a 5-hit shutout. Les Mann scored Chicago's first run of Game 5, and center fielder Dode Paskert hit a 2-run double in the top of the 8th inning to ensure the 3-0 Cubs win. In Game 6 at Fenway, Cubs outfielder Max Flack made a costly error in the 3rd inning. This allowed the Red Sox to score 2 runs and take a 2-0 lead. The Cubs responded with a run in the 4th inning to make it 2-1. However, Carl Mays pitched a complete game 3-hitter and ensured there would be no Cubs comeback. The Boston Red Sox were World Series champions for the 5th time. Here's a little secret. 1918 was the last time the Red Sox would win the World Series for nearly a century. But the real story? A young, left-handed pitcher by the name of Babe Ruth. Yes, the same Babe Ruth who would go on to become the Sultan of SWAT. Before he became the slugging legend, Babe Ruth was a phenomenal pitcher. In the 1918 World Series, he played a critical role for the Red Sox, pitching a shutout in Game 1. Little did anyone know, Ruth was about to revolutionize the game, shifting from pitching to hitting home runs. This would set the stage for the modern power era in baseball. As if a world war wasn't enough, 1918 also brought the Spanish flu pandemic, killing millions worldwide. Baseball games saw reduced crowds as fear of the flu spread. Yet, through it all, baseball remained resilient, and the nation turned to the sport as a distraction from the uncertainty. 1918 wasn't just a year of war and flu, it was a year of transformation for baseball. A new hero was born in Babe Ruth, and the World Series solidified baseball's place in the hearts of Americans. Even when faced with the darkest of times, baseball endured. 1919, a year when baseball wasn't just a game, it was a national obsession. But it wasn't just home runs and hot dogs. This was the year that would forever change the course of America's pastime. Scandal, glory, and everything in between. Welcome to the story of 1919, where baseball reached new heights and shocking lows. In 1919, America was recovering from World War I. Baseball was back, bigger than ever, providing much-needed entertainment and a sense of normalcy. The league was packed with legendary stars like Babe Ruth, Shoeless Joe Jackson, and Eddie Cicotte. Fans flocked to stadiums to watch their favorite teams, but behind the scenes, something far darker was brewing. This was also the year Babe Ruth, the Sultan of SWAT, transformed the game. Known mostly as a pitcher before, Ruth's move to becoming a full-time slugger changed baseball forever. He hit an unprecedented 29 home runs in 1919, shattering the previous record and captivating the nation. Fans couldn't get enough of his larger-than-life personality and monstrous swings. Little did anyone know, the Bambino was just getting started. The 1919 World Series featured the American League champions, the Chicago White Sox, and the National League champions, the Cincinnati Reds. It was a series surrounded in controversy, but it was historic for other reasons as well. This series was the first best-of-9 World Series since 1903. Game 1 took place at the Reds' home field of Redland Field in Cincinnati, Ohio. It was the first World Series game the Reds had ever played in, so the stadium was packed with over 30,000 fans. The Reds fans in attendance wouldn't be disappointed. The White Sox and Reds were tied 1-1 heading into the fifth inning. However, Chicago White Sox pitcher Eddie Cicotte purposefully allowed a number of hits and even allowed a two-out triple by Reds pitcher Walter "Dutch" Reuther. This led to 5 Reds runs in the fifth inning and a 6-1 Reds lead. The Reds scored 3 more runs for the 9-1 victory. Game 2 saw Lefty Williams replace Eddie Cicotte as the White Sox's starting pitcher. He was less obvious with the fix, not allowing any Reds runs before the fourth inning. Williams gave up 3 runs and walked 3 batters in the fourth inning. He only allowed 1 more Reds run in the entire game. However, the White Sox couldn't produce any clutch hitting to take advantage of this. The Reds won 4-2. The 1919 World Series moved to Comiskey Park in Chicago for Game 3. Dickie Kerr, the White Sox's rookie pitcher, was not part of the Black Sox scandal. Kerr started Game 3 and was excellent, pitching a 3-hit complete game shutout. Chick Gandil, the White Sox first baseman, drove in 2 runs as Chicago won Game 3 by a score of 3-0. Eddie Cicotte returned as the White Sox's starting pitcher in Game 4. He made sure to play better to conceal the fix more effectively, matching Reds pitcher Jimmy Ring in not allowing any runs through the first 4 innings. Cicotte made a 2-base error in the 5th inning, then fumbled the ball to let Reds outfielder Pat Duncan score. Cicotte followed that up by letting Reds right fielder Greasy Neal hit a double to allow Koff to score and make it 2-0 Reds. This score held and the Reds won. The Reds dominated Game 5, winning 5-0 as Heine Groh, Ed D. Roush, and Maury Roth all scored runs. Chicago responded with a 5-4 win in Game 6 and again with a 4-1 win Game 7 in Cincinnati. In Game 8, Lefty Williams gave up 3 runs in the first inning before Chicago White Sox big Bill James relieved him. James was ineffective and the Reds easily won 10-5. The Cincinnati Reds had won their first World Series title, but it was likely the most controversial World Series title in baseball history. Despite the thrills, 1919 will forever be remembered for one of baseball's darkest moments: the Black Sox scandal. 8 members of the Chicago White Sox were accused of throwing the World Series against the Cincinnati Reds in exchange for bribes from gamblers. Shoeless Joe Jackson, one of the greatest players of all time, was at the center of the controversy. Though Jackson played phenomenally during the series, the scandal shook the very foundation of baseball's integrity. The fallout was massive. The players involved were banned from the game for life, and Major League Baseball appointed its first commissioner, Kennesaw Mountain Landis, to restore the sport's reputation. Baseball would take time to recover from this. Despite the scandal, 1919 remains a pivotal year. It marked the beginning of the live ball era, where power hitters like Ruth would dominate the game. The controversy surrounding the Black Sox also helped lead to stricter regulations, ensuring the game's integrity in the future. 1919 wasn't just a year of scandal. It was a turning point that helped baseball grow into the beloved national pastime it is today. 1920 was the year baseball changed forever. Drama, legends, and a game that captured America's heart. Buckle up, because we're about to dive into one of the most pivotal years in baseball history. Welcome back to How Baseball Became America's Pastime, the series where we take you through the game's most transformative moments. Today, we're jumping into 1920, a year of tragedy, triumph, and transition for Major League Baseball. Following the Black Sox scandal, the MLB took steps to ensure the game's integrity, including appointing Kennesaw Mountain Landis as its first commissioner. The 1920 season was pivotal as baseball attempted to restore its reputation among fans and the media alike. Babe Ruth was a superstar. In 1920, the Sultan of SWAT smashed his way into the record books, hitting an unprecedented 54 home runs for the New York Yankees. He revolutionized the game by making the home run an essential part of baseball's appeal. Fans packed the stadiums just to see this one-man wrecking crew send balls flying out of the park. The 1920 offseason included a monumental trade as the Boston Red Sox sent Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees in exchange for $125,000. Adjusted for inflation, this would be $2.2 million in 2023. This trade transformed the Yankees from a respectable team that won 80 games in the 1919 season to instant contenders for the American League pennant. Additionally, this trade started the curse of the Bambino superstition among Boston Red Sox fans. Despite winning 5 World Series championships between 1903 and 1918, the Red Sox would go 86 years without winning a World Series title. The Red Sox didn't win their 6th World Series title until 2004. Aside from the end of the Red Sox's first dynasty, baseball also saw the start of the live ball era in 1920. Babe Ruth's power hitting shaped the early live ball era. Ruth's home runs marked the beginning of a new era, the live ball era. Before 1920, baseball was a low-scoring, pitcher-dominated game. But in 1920, new rules and changes to the ball itself made it harder to rely on the pitcher's dominance. Suddenly, hitting for power became the name of the game, and it changed how baseball was played forever. Sadly, 1920 wasn't without its tragedy. Ray Chapman, a shortstop for the Cleveland Indians, was tragically killed after being hit in the head by a pitch during a game. This led to the adoption of stricter safety measures, including banning dirty, scuffed balls and eventually the introduction of helmets. Despite the loss of Chapman, the Cleveland Indians persevered and made it to the 1920 World Series where they faced the Brooklyn Robins. This was a best-of-9 series once again. Game 1 in Brooklyn only lasted 1 hour and 41 minutes. Steve O'Neill, the Cleveland Indians catcher, hit RBI doubles in both the second inning and the fourth inning. On the mound, Stan Kovaleski, the Indians' starting pitcher, pitched a 5-hitter. The Indians won Game 1 by a score of 3-1. However, the Robins bounced back in Game 2. Jimmy Johnston's single led to a first-inning Indians run, and left fielder Zach Wheat hit a double later in the game. Burley Grimes pitched a complete game shutout as the Robins won 3-0. The Robins carried that positive momentum into Game 3, scoring 2 runs in the first inning thanks to hits from outfielder Hy Myers and Zach Wheat. The Indians took Ray Caldwell, their starting pitcher, out of the game after that. Tris Speaker, the Indians' center fielder, scored a run in the fourth inning. However, the Robins held on for the 2-1 win. The 1920 World Series shifted to Cleveland for Game 4. At home, the Indians dominated, scoring 4 runs in the first 3 innings. The Robins pulled their starting pitcher, Leon Cador, out of the game after the first inning. However, relief pitcher Al Mamau was taken off in the 3rd inning. George Burns hit a 2-run double off of Rube Marquard after Marquard was brought on as the 3rd Robins pitcher of the game. Stan Kovaleski was excellent once again, pitching a 5-hitter. The Indians won convincingly, 5-1. The Indians dominated once more in Game 5, scoring 4 first-inning runs en route to routing the Robins 8-1. Indians outfielder Elmer Smith hit a grand slam, and Indians pitcher Jim Bagby hit a home run to the delight of the home fans at League Park in Cleveland. Indians pitcher Duster Mayles pitched a 3-hit shutout in Game 6. The Indians scored the game's only run in the 6th inning thanks to a George Burns double and a Tris Speaker 2-out single. Incredibly, Game 6 only lasted 94 minutes. Facing elimination, Robins starting pitcher Burley Grimes made an error on an Indians double steal, and this led to Game 7's first run. Stan Kovaleski pitched incredibly well while Tris Speaker hit a run-scoring triple in the 5th inning, and Indians outfielder Charlie Jamieson hit an RBI single in the 7th inning. The Indians won 3-0 and celebrated their first World Series championship in front of their ecstatic fans at League Park in Cleveland, overcoming the sorrow of Ray Chapman's tragic death. Stan Kovaleski was outstanding in the 1920 World Series, winning all 3 games he started. Thankfully for baseball, there was no controversy about this World Series. And there you have it, 1920, a year that defined baseball in ways that still resonate today. From tragedy to home run glory, this year set the stage for baseball to truly become America's pastime. "1921 was a year that changed the game forever. New champions, legendary rivalries, and one name that would echo through the ages, Babe Ruth. Stick around because we're diving into one of the most exciting years in baseball history. From iconic stadiums to record-breaking moments, 1921 saw baseball continue its path toward becoming America's pastime. Let's dive right into the most important events. First, let's talk about the team that divides opinion more than any other team in baseball history, the New York Yankees. Babe Ruth was utterly dominant in the 1921 MLB season. Ruth hit 59 home runs in 1921, setting a new record for most home runs in an MLB season for the second consecutive season. In 1921, Ruth was in his prime at 26 years old and was now established as a baseball superstar. Ruth led a star-studded New York Yankees team that included other stars like Frank Baker, Wally Schang, Carl Mays, Waite Hoyt, and Rip Collins. Unsurprisingly, the Yankees won their first ever American League pennant in 1921, narrowly finishing ahead of the 1920 World Series champions, the Cleveland Indians. The Yankees won 98 games in 1921. This included 14 wins against the Indians. The New York Yankees advanced to the World Series for the first time in their history. The 1921 World Series featured a New York-centric clash between the New York Yankees and the New York Giants. The Giants won the 1921 National League pennant with a 94-59 record. The 1921 Giants had several future Hall of Fame players, including George High Pockets Kelly, David Bancroft, Frank Frisch, and others. Fans eagerly anticipated the New York showdown between these two great teams in the 1921 World Series. Since this was the final World Series to use a best-of-9 format, the fans expected a back-and-forth battle between the two star-studded New York teams. They would not be disappointed. Yankees pitcher Carl Mays dominated in Game 1, pitching a complete game as he shut out the Giants and only allowed 5 hits. The Yankees won 3-0. The Giants carefully pitched against Babe Ruth in Game 2, walking him 3 times. However, Ruth surprised them by stealing second base after the 3rd walk. Ruth also stole third base, but scraped his elbow badly as he did so. His elbow became infected. Still, Yankees pitcher Waite Hoyt played excellently and held the Giants to only 2 hits all game. The Yankees again won by a score of 3-0 and were now up 2-0 in the 1921 World Series. Game 3 was dramatic. The Yankees took a 4-0 lead in the top of the 3rd inning. However, the Giants rallied and tied the game 4-4 by the end of the 3rd inning. The Giants scored an incredible 8 runs in the 7th inning, including a bases-loaded triple from right fielder Ross Youngs. The Yankees took Babe Ruth out of Game 3 in the 8th inning after Ruth scraped his elbow a second time when sliding into a base. After Game 3, the Yankees announced that Ruth would not return for the rest of the World Series because he needed medical treatment on his elbow. Much to the Yankees fans' delight, Ruth did return for Game 4. Despite this, Ruth repeatedly touched his elbow throughout Game 4. Ruth managed 2 hits and a home run in the 9th inning. This was the first World Series home run in Ruth's career and the first in the Yankees' history. Despite this, the Giants won Game 4 by a score of 4-2. The 1921 World Series was now tied 2-2. In a pivotal Game 5, the score was tied 1-1 in the fourth inning. Babe Ruth bunted and made it to first base, shocking everyone. Yankees outfielder Bob Mosel hit a double in the fourth, allowing Ruth to score the go-ahead run from first base. The Yankees won 3-1 and regained the momentum in the series. Game 6 was even more dramatic. The Yankees led 3-0 after the first inning and led 5-3 after the second inning. However, the Giants took a 7-5 lead after a 4-run fourth inning. The Giants scored an eighth run in the sixth inning and won 8-5. With the series tied 3-3, the Giants and Yankees faced off in Game 7. Giants pitcher Phil Douglas played well as the Yankees only managed 8 hits and 1 run. Giants catcher Frank Snyder hit an RBI double in the seventh inning, and the Giants won 2-1. In Game 8, the Giants took a 1-0 lead in the first inning. Miller Huggins, the Yankees manager at the time, sent Babe Ruth to rescue the Yankees from elimination in the bottom of the ninth inning by pinch hitting. However, Ruth grounded out and Yankees infielder Aaron Ward was thrown out at third base. The New York Giants were World Series champions for the first time since 1905. However, the 1921 World Series was far from the only historic event that happened in the 1921 MLB season. 1921 was also the year baseball truly became accessible to the masses, thanks to a game-changing technology, radio. On August 5th, 1921, KDKA in Pittsburgh aired the first ever live broadcast of a Major League Baseball game. The game was the Pittsburgh Pirates' 8-5 win over the Philadelphia Phillies at Forbes Field in Pittsburgh. Harold Arlen called the game in this historic broadcast. For the first time, fans who couldn't make it to the ballpark could experience the thrill of the game from their own homes, sparking a new era of baseball fandom. 1921 was a year of firsts, records, and rivalries, one that would help shape baseball into the sport we know and love today. (1922), a year when baseball wasn't just a game, it was America's heartbeat. From stadium-shaking crowds to legendary moments, what made 1922 so pivotal in professional baseball history? Stay tuned to find out. Hey baseball fans, welcome back to How Baseball Became America's Pastime. Today we're diving into the year 1922, a season that shaped the future of the game. So, without further ado, let's dive in. In 1922, the New York Giants were the defending World Series champions. They beat their intra-state rivals, the Yankees, in 8 games in the 1921 World Series. This started a heated rivalry between the two New York teams. The Yankees won the 1922 American League pennant with a 94-60 record, only 1 win ahead of the St. Louis Browns. The Giants won the National League pennant a bit more easily, finishing 7 games ahead of the Cincinnati Reds. The 1922 World Series featured a rematch between the New York Yankees and the New York Giants. Game 1 remained scoreless until Walter Whitey Witt hit a triple off of Giants pitcher Art Neff, and Babe Ruth brought home the run with a hit. Aaron Ward hit a sacrifice fly in the 7th inning with runners on both second and third base. This increased the Yankees' lead to 2-0. However, the Giants rallied in the 8th inning, scoring 4 consecutive leadoff singles. The last of these leadoff singles led to Frederick Irish Musil, the Giants' left fielder, bringing in 2 runs. Giants relief pitcher Waite Hoyt scored the game-winning run following a sacrifice fly from Ross Youngs. Game 2 was controversial. The Giants took an early 3-0 lead in the first inning after Irish Musil hit a 3-run home run following 2 singles from earlier batters. Yankees first baseman Wally Pipp hit an RBI single after Joe Dugan got to second base due to an error. After this first run, Aaron Ward hit a home run in the 4th inning to make it 3-2 Giants. Babe Ruth and Bob Mosel hit doubles in the 8th inning to tie the game 3-3. However, the game was called off supposedly due to darkness, and it was officially a tie. Few fans were happy about that outcome. Jack Scott, the Giants' knuckleball pitcher, shut down the Yankees' bats in Game 3. The Giants had runners on second and third base in the bottom of the 3rd inning. Irish Musil hit an RBI single and Frankie Frisch hit a sacrifice fly, with each of them bringing in a Giants run. Frisch hit an RBI single in the 7th inning and scored a 3rd run. Game 3 lasted only 1 hour and 48 minutes and ended in a 3-0 Giants victory. In Game 4, Bob Musil and Wally Pipp hit consecutive singles to score 2 first-inning runs for the Yankees. Despite this, the Giants got a leadoff single and double in the 5th inning. Following that, Giants shortstop Dave Bancroft hit a 2-run single and tied the game. Irish Musil ground out and Ross Youngs hit an RBI single, scoring 2 more runs. The Giants led 4-2 after the 5th inning. Aaron Ward hit a home run in the 7th inning to reduce the Giants' lead to 1 run. However, the Yankees failed to score another run and lost. Art Naif started on the mound for the Giants in Game 5. His pitching held the Yankees to 5 hits in the game. The Yankees scored a first-inning run after Joe Dugan hit a single, made it to second base after a sacrifice bunt, and got to home base after Wally Pipp hit an RBI single. The Yankees' lead didn't last long. The Giants had runners on second and third base in the bottom of the 2nd inning. Giants outfielder Bill Cunningham hit a 2-run single, and the Giants took the lead. Yankees pitcher Bullet Joe Bush hit a 5th-inning RBI single to tie the game following a single and a walk. Yankees shortstop Everett Scott hit a sacrifice fly to bring in another run and restore the Yankees' lead. The Yankees now led 3-2. A Frankie Frisch double and a Heine Groh single started the Giants' rally. The Yankees intentionally walked Ross Youngs. After that, Giants first baseman High Pockets Kelly hit a 2-run single. Giants outfielder Lee King hit an RBI single to increase the Giants' lead to 5-3. The Yankees failed to make a comeback, and the Giants had now won back-to-back World Series championships against their New York rivals. 1922 also brought a huge shift in how people experienced baseball. Radio. For the first time, fans could listen to games without being at the ballpark. Imagine sitting at home, the crackle of the radio, and hearing every crack of the bat live. Radio broadcasts gave fans a new way to connect with their favorite teams, expanding baseball's reach far beyond the stadium seats. In a way, 1922 was the year baseball started truly becoming America's pastime. Of course, we can't talk about 1922 without mentioning the legend himself, Babe Ruth. But for Ruth, this year wasn't his best. The great Bambino struggled with injuries, a suspension, and a below-average postseason performance. He still managed to hit 35 home runs in 1922. However, Ruth's larger-than-life personality still kept fans hooked. Even when he stumbled, he remained the face of baseball. The Babe showed us that even the greatest icons have their tough seasons. So there you have it, 1922, a year of legendary victories, growing media influence, challenges for icons, and a heated intrastate rivalry between 2 great teams. It was a year that helped mold baseball into America's pastime. Welcome to 1923, a year that would forever change the course of baseball history. Picture this: roaring crowds, towering home runs, and a new stadium rising in the Bronx. But this isn't just any year. It's the year the house that Ruth built took center stage. Stick around, because this is when baseball truly became America's pastime. 1923 marks the grand opening of one of the most iconic ballparks in the world, Yankee Stadium. On April 18th, the stadium opened its gates for the first time, drawing over 60,000 fans for the Yankees' debut game. And who stole the show? None other than Babe Ruth himself, belting a 3-run homer to christen the new field. In that game, the Yankees beat the Red Sox 4-1, a fitting way to begin their time at their new ballpark. It was the birth of the house that Ruth built, a stadium that symbolized the rise of the Yankees dynasty. The opening of Yankee Stadium signaled more than just a new ballpark. It was the dawn of a new era in baseball, one where larger-than-life stadiums and even bigger personalities would capture the hearts of America. And speaking of larger-than-life, Babe Ruth dominated the league in 1923, hitting .393 with 41 home runs. He wasn't just a slugger. He was a cultural icon. Ruth's ability to draw massive crowds and his charisma off the field made him more than a player. He was the face of baseball. The Sultan of Swat was at the height of his powers, and his home runs were becoming legendary. In the new live ball era, Ruth made a fence the headline act, revolutionizing the game and earning his place as the ultimate showman. His performance that season helped lead the Yankees back to the World Series for the third consecutive season. Now let's talk about the 1923 World Series. The Yankees faced off against their rivals, the New York Giants, in a thrilling matchup. The Giants beat the Yankees in both the 1921 and 1922 World Series, sweeping them in 1922. As a result, many doubted that the third World Series between these two New York teams would turn out any differently than the previous two. The Yankees were determined to prove those people wrong. Game 1 was dramatic. The Yankees took an early 1-0 lead thanks to Babe Ruth's first inning run after Bob Moosel's double. Whitey Witt, the Yankees center fielder, hit a 2-run single in the second inning to increase the Yankees' lead to 3-0. The Giants rallied with a 4-run third inning, forcing the Yankees to replace starting pitcher Waite Hoyt with Bullet Joe Bush. Giants right fielder Casey Stengel hit a ninth-inning home run to secure the 5-4 Giants victory. In Game 2, Yankees infielder Aaron Ward and Giants left fielder Irish Moosel both hit home runs in the second inning to tie the game at 1-1. However, Babe Ruth stepped up for the Yankees and hit home runs in both the fourth and fifth innings. The Giants scored a second run in the sixth inning, but the Yankees won 4-2. Game 3 was a classic pitchers duel between Giants pitcher Art Neff and Yankees pitcher Sad Sam Jones. The game remained scoreless until Casey Stengel hit a seventh-inning home run to secure the 1-0 Giants win. The Yankees dominated on the road in Game 4, scoring 6 runs in the second inning. The Giants replaced starting pitcher Jack Scott as a result. Despite this, the Yankees scored 2 more runs thanks to a 2-run triple from Bob Moosel. The Giants scored 4 runs in the final 2 innings, including a ninth-inning Ross Young's home run. However, Yankees relief pitcher Herb Pennock ensured the Giants wouldn't make a late comeback. Following their dominant 8-4 victory in Game 4, the Yankees returned to Yankee Stadium for Game 5 full of confidence. In front of their roaring fans, the Yankees batters overwhelmed the Giants. In the first inning, Bob Moosel hit a 2-run triple and Yankees first baseman Wally Pipp hit a sacrifice fly to give the Yankees a 3-0 lead. Yankees third baseman Joe Dugan hit an inside-the-park home run that scored 3 runs in the second inning. The Yankees scored 4 runs in total in the second inning and put the game already out of reach for the Giants. Yankees pitcher Bullet Joe Bush did allow 1 Giants run in the second inning, but overall, he played excellently as the Giants only managed 3 hits in Game 5. Facing elimination, the Giants hoped their home crowd at the Polo Grounds would help lift them to victory. Babe Ruth hit a 2-out home run in the first inning, but 3 Giants first-inning singles tied the game 1-1. Giants center fielder Bill Cunningham scored a go-ahead 4th-inning run, and Giants catcher Frank Snyder added a 5th-inning home run to increase the Giants' lead to 4-1. However, the Yankees capitalized on 2 singles and then 3 consecutive walks after that. Babe Ruth struck out with the Yankees down only 4-3, but Bob Moosel came up clutch with an 8th-inning 2-out single that scored 2 runs. The Yankees scored another 8th-inning run due to a Giants error. Now leading 6-4, Sad Sam Jones pitched a 6-out save to secure the Yankees' first World Series championship. After losing to their New York rivals in consecutive World Series, the Yankees were now World Series champions. This was the start of the Yankees' first dynasty, as they would be 3-time World Series champions by the end of the 1920s. The 1923 season wasn't just about games and stats. It was about baseball cementing itself as America's pastime. The sport captivated millions, becoming a symbol of hope, perseverance, and the American spirit in the Roaring Twenties. As Yankee Stadium filled with fans, baseball filled the hearts of a nation. Baseball wasn't just a game anymore. It was an event, a shared experience that united people from all walks of life. And 1923 was the year that elevated the sport to new heights. And that's it. This is the final episode in our series, How Baseball Became America's Pastime. From the sport's humble beginnings to the rise of Babe Ruth and the Yankees' first dynasty, we've explored every corner of baseball history. But don't go anywhere. This may be the end of this series, but we've got more amazing sports history series coming soon. So, if you love this journey, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon with more incredible sports stories.